A county sheriff is facing an indictment stemming from the use of the state's civil asset forfeiture law. The case involves two allegedly known drug dealers caught with $10,000 in their car. The grand jury indicted Wagner County Sheriff Bob Colbert and a deputy for allegedly making a deal with the pair, saying just sign over the money and then go free. In the upcoming legislative session, reform of the asset forfeiture law will be again on the agenda, but this time with even more support for passage.
With several high-profile incidents to bolster their case, supporters of making major changes to the state civil asset forfeiture law are preparing for another battle in the legislature with law enforcement. With a diverse group of organizations already backing the reforms, supporters now have the endorsement of the state's top law enforcement officer, Attorney General Scott Pruitt.
That is something that ought to be a part of the tools, the arsenal available to law enforcement. However, what we see happening in Oklahoma, and I think we see this in other places across the country, is an abuse of that authority.
Speaking on the Cato Institute's daily podcast, Pruitt offered a view of civil asset forfeiture reform that mirrors a bill that will be introduced in the Senate next year.
If there's an asset, as a car or otherwise, that potentially could be used in drug trafficking, then it's retained. But if charges are not brought within a certain time period, 60 days, 90 days, the property is returned. If charges are brought within that time frame, the property is held in abeyance or in escrow until conviction.
Pruitt points specifically to the case of Iwa, a Dallas resident born in Myanmar who was stopped by a Muskogee County Sheriff's deputy for a broken taillight.
He was a manager of a Christian contemporary band that had been on a multi-state tour raising money to send to Burma, and was traveling through Oklahoma back to Dallas where he resided, and had $53,000 in the car.
After 4 hours of interrogation and phone calls confirming his story of where the money came from, the sheriff's office seized the money.
I told the band right away that night while I was at the station. And when they learned about it, they couldn't believe something like this would happen to them. Something like this would happen here in the U.S.
Attorney General Pruitt says this case alone is enough to show reform is needed.
That's wrong. Fundamentally, that's wrong. That's something about our legal process that needs to be. We need a habeas process for property with respect to asset forfeiture, and it's not a very complex issue in my view.
Senator Kyle Loveless sponsored the original bill last session, but it failed to win approval. Loveless says he doesn't understand why law enforcement is so adamantly opposed to his bill.
California is getting ready to do a model. Florida, Wyoming, Nebraska, all diverse kinds of states are doing it with law enforcement's help. So why is it here in Oklahoma they're not on board? That I don't know.
Canadian County Sheriff Randall Edwards, a staunch opponent of making changes to the civil asset forfeiture law, explains that opposition.
We work hard at keeping drugs off the road, and it's totally funded by asset forfeiture money. So I don't know how you can improve on that.
Senator Loveless says his new bill will have specific exemptions for law enforcement, things he hopes will lessen their opposition.
If the person dies, if the person is a informant on a larger investigation, if the person flees the state, if they leave jurisdiction, if they sign an affidavit, and this one's important, if they sign an affidavit that they don't know whose property this is.
One other provision would set a cutoff of reforms when police seize more than $50,000, all exemptions would be lifted.
But if it's $50,000 or less, then the new reforms take place. So that the single mom that gets pulled over, or the kid that has student loans on a prepaid debit card that they try to scan and take the money from, we need to make sure that they're protected.
But those are changes that aren't likely to change Sheriff Edwards' mind.
My advice to Senator Loveless and the legislature, for what it's worth, don't if something's not broke, don't try to fix it. And be careful what you wish for, because you might get it.
For Sheriff Edwards, the case of Iwa is an example of the law working as intended.
There was a church group that got some money taken away from them that proved to be legitimate, and they got it back.
In 2014, Sheriff Edwards says his office confiscated $263,000. In 2015, the number jumped to $689,000, and just last month, his deputies seized over $400,000 in just one stop. Senator Lovelace believes police and prosecutors are so strongly opposed because seizing assets has become a key element of funding their operations.
Do we need to fund law enforcement? Absolutely. But not on the backs of the missionaries, and not on the backs of you or I, and not on the backs of the single mom. That's the issue.
The Institute for Justice gives Oklahoma a D- for its current law because no charges or convictions are required and that law enforcement gets the money. A new Sooner poll now shows that 73.7% of Oklahomans support civil asset forfeiture reform. That is up from 69.9% just last year. In November, a new state law goes into effect that allows people to recover their attorney fees if they can show their assets were seized unjustly.